I'm in love with my brother's wife. Part 1. Salam and hello everyone. I apologize for my story being too long, however I believe it's worth the read and I'm just too weak to bear with this pain, so take this as a venting session and hopefully others can relate too. I am a 23-year-old male who tries his best to stay on deen. I lower my gaze, pray my daily prayers and do as many sunnah as I can and also try to seek knowledge as much I can. About 4 years ago I came to the conclusion that I would never get married because of the terrible experiences I had with the women around me and the fact that it was hard to find a sister who was on deen or had the same goals as me. It might have been due to my naivety and my close-mindedness supported by my negative experiences and social media, which played a big factor in having a dumb opinion that there are no good sisters to marry. However, I had overcome this mindset 2 years ago and was open to the idea of marriage since I realized that my desire for intercourse had increased and there would be no way I would want to do it in the haram way. So I made a pact with myself that I would get married as soon as I finished with uni, which I had done a year ago. When I started my third year, one day I had seen a sister at uni who was dressed modestly, a big black flowy jilbab. I saw her rushing down the corridor to a class. It looked as though she were late. She has the most beautiful looking face I had ever seen in my life. She was gorgeous. I caught myself staring at her, so I looked away immediately and rushed into another direction and into my class. I told myself that I would never see her again since there were thousands of people at my uni and that I don't even know her. It was just a mere physical attraction and that was it. As I rushed into my class and told myself these things, a few minutes later the sister I had seen came into the class a few minutes later and I had seen her again and was swayed immediately. She sat at 2 rows ahead of me. How great, now I had to see her for the rest of the semester. My attraction towards her grew daily. I saw her every day and made me want to kill myself. I hated myself for always looking at her. She dressed in the correct hijab and here I was just staring at her shamelessly. Since I had become more open with the idea of marriage, I thought I could plan to ask her for her hand, so I made a plan to learn about her and what I could to do to make myself a good option for her in marriage. I found out she had a brother who we will call B. B went to the same uni as us. He was in second year. I became friends with him so that maybe he could suggest me as a good option as a husband for her right after uni. I just had to make sure that I was quick to ask for her hand. So we started to hang out and I became good friends with B. Initially I did it for my own selfish gains, but he was a practicing Muslim and so I had made a friend for the first time in a while, and it was a religious friend. You don't really find those type of friends usually. Anyways, one day we made plans to go hiking with his dad. I found this the perfect opportunity to make myself look good in front of his dad so I could be with his sister. I thanked Allah for this opportunity. I even convinced my dad to tag along with us. Side note, at the time of the hike my dad was aware of my little crush I had on B's sister, so I had asked him to come and brag about me so I could be a good potential and option to B's dad. Anyways, the hike went well and our dads bonded over the exciting outing we had together and even exchanged numbers. They also had conversations about their kids and yup, my dad sure did brag about me. He is honestly the best wingman ever. B's dad gave me a pat on the back and said I was a good man and that he would marry his daughter off to a man like me. I was over the moon. I legit could not stop making scenarios of us in my head. I felt like I was suffering from success. On another occasion I saw B's sister come into class with a niqab on, and from that day she usually wore the niqab. This made me want her even more. She took an extra step when it came to modesty. She truly was a rare one. She was quiet and never spoke, just focused on herself and didn't speak unnecessarily to others. One day towards the end of the semester she stopped coming to classes. I noticed this and asked B about it. He found it suspicious that I would randomly ask about his sister, whom we never brought up once in our conversations, but I brushed off with some lame excuse like, oh, I saw her with your dad once and I recognized her. And so he explained that she switched to online since she didn't feel comfortable in an in-person class and all the free mixing and whatnot. This time I felt love for her, like real love. It wasn't just a silly little crush anymore, and you can think that is corny and whatever, but really? How often do you find a sister that is extremely gorgeous, modest and wears niqab and doesn't like to free mix? This was like a dream for me, especially if you're a brother living in the West. I started to look back on those days where I disliked women and thought I wouldn't find a good woman, but now, I felt like I was floating on happiness. Right there and then I confessed to be about my IO for his sister.